and let it. God says, let that expanse do something. What is that? Divide the waters from the waters. Let that expanse in the midst of the waters do its work of actually dividing waters from waters. Interesting. God commands this expanse into existence, and God gives order for this expanse to do something. But I want you to notice verse 7. Something else here. I want you to notice the deed of God. The deed of God. It is really God doing this work. And we can never lose sight of that. Everything in heaven and earth is the creation of God, and He is the doer of it. He speaks it into existence, but He is the one who is doing it. For it says in verse 7, God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. God made it. God made that expanse, that air, that openness where yesterday I was praying upward. God was the maker of that place. God was the maker of that. And an amazing thing. And let it divide the waters which were under the firmament, the sea, from the waters which were above the firmament. So what's that? Is that like, oh, there's like all this air, and then there's like this great sea up there above? Kind of, sort of. Kind of, sort of. Kind of like that. Today, we love it. We see the clouds. I don't know how it was. What'd you think of that downpour we had yesterday? Woo! Boy, you could see it coming. Those clouds, how heavy they were. Boy, I'll tell you, that rain just came down. It really, really did. Yeah. Waters above the firmament, up there. Yeah, they have no idea. God said, He's the one who made the firmament, and God is the one who actually did the dividing of the firmament, of the water, under from the water that is above. And the Bible says, and it was so. It was accomplished. It happened. What God said, what God did, was accomplished. And then would you look at verse 8? I want you to notice the designation of God. God's designation, His assignment, His identification here. And God called the firmament heaven, the Bible says. God calls that firmament, that expanse. God is the one who gives it a name, and He calls it heaven. In the Hebrew, excuse me. In the Hebrew, the word heaven comes from the Hebrew word shama. Shama. And the word shama means to be lofty, to be high up, to be up there. It has that concept of being a kind of realm that is above, a kind of loftiness. That's the meaning of the word heaven. And God calls this expanse that divides the waters under it and the waters that are above it, He calls that expanse heaven, the loftiness, the place that is high up. And we read here further the distinction, or consider the distinction. God has already created heaven. The Bible says in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Now we see here a specific aspect of that heaven, and what I believe to be the first heaven. Interesting, you'll read in the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, reference to the Apostle Paul speaking of a man that he knew so many years ago who was taken up to the third heaven, where he heard things that were unlawful to be said or impossible to speak. He was taken up into the third heaven. The idea that that place, that realm of God, that place that you cannot get to with a spaceship. The second is typically understood as the realm of the stars, the outer space. The first heaven is understood as that atmosphere